G'day everyone, welcome back to my weekly tipping video. As always, this preview is brought to you by PlayUp. If you are thinking of having a punt on the NRL this round, make sure it's through PlayUp, guys. But as always, please gamble responsibly. Hey guys, Clarkey here. Welcome to my round 23 NRL tipping and preview show. Today I'm going to go through all the games, give you my tip and talk a little bit about the ins and outs, why I see certain games going certain ways. So with that being said, let's jump straight into this video. Thursday night, my team, the Gold Coast Titans, we take on the Melbourne Storm at Cbus Super Stadium. Now, in this game, as we understand, Brandon Smith has been rested, and it also appears that Jerome Hughes has been rested, Justin Olam's been rested, and Dale Finucane has been rested. Now, two of those did get a head knock, being Finucane and Hughes, but Olam and Brandon Smith both, it appears at this stage, tactically rested there. And for good reason. I mean, the Storm have won 19 in a row. I thought the Titans were half a chance to maybe upset the South Sydney Rabbitohs last round. They ended up 36-6. Yeah, that's a blowout. And so when you think that the Melbourne Storm have beaten the South Sydney Rabbitohs by 50 or more points this year, then there's really not too much room here for anyone to really sit here and tip the Titans. So I can see they're massive outsiders. They are within the 8, but they might not be at the end of this round because I've got the Melbourne Storm winning by a big margin. I think Melbourne Storm win 13 plus there. Friday night at 6 p.m, guys, Suncorp Stadium, the Canberra Raiders take on the Manly Sea Eagles. Now, the Canberra Raiders do have Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad back, which is absolutely huge, but he will be coming off the bench. Now, a lot of people were leaning towards the Raiders in this game, and I understood that because it was reported Tom Trbojevic had a cheekbone injury and that he was going to be out. Well, as we now know, that Tom Trbojevic is actually tracking really, really well. He's fully expected to play. And so that means Moses Suli returns to the centres. And Moses Suli last week was absolutely incredible. Yes, he was only playing against 11 Parramatta players at one stage, but just to bring up his stats, in the short time he was on the field, in 18 minutes, Moses Suli had 2 tries, 3 tackle breaks for 3 line breaks. So we know what sort of an attacking weapon he is. He slots straight into centre there for Brad Parker, who was knocked out last week. So whilst Parker has obviously been in some great form, I don't view this as a massive loss for Manly. I still think they're almost close to full strength. I've got them beating the Raiders here, but the Raiders did show us last week that they are a tough, gritty, durable side. And so I want to tip the Manly Sea Eagles 13 plus just because they are so good at attacking. But what I see the Canberra Raiders doing is dragging the Sea Eagles into a style where they haven't really experienced it too much this year, and that might really disrupt their attack. But I still think they'll have too many points in them. But for that reason, I will only go the Manly Sea Eagles to win that one 1-12. Later that night at 8:05 p.m, also at Suncorp, the Penrith Panthers take on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I'm actually with the Rabbitohs in this one, guys. I really loved how the Rabbitohs were building throughout this season, and I know the Panthers have beaten them by 50 points earlier this year, and I know the Panthers are almost full strength, but regardless, and all things aside, I just really like the Bunnies here. I think their time's come. Their time has come to spring an upset. I think if they do beat the Penrith Panthers, then they can once again be considered genuine title threats. Not that we don't really view them as one, but this will really cement their place. It won't be for question because they've beaten one of the big two, your Melbourne Storm, Penrith Panthers per se. So I'll go the Bunnies here. For the Panthers, Stephen Crichton stays on the wing for another week. Now, I personally don't think that's his best position. I don't think it's a bad position for him, but I just think he might be a little bit unmatched in that position against a great finisher like Alex Johnston or maybe even Josh Mansour, depending on how that pans out. Now, for the Panthers, Tavita Pangai Jr. and James Fisher-Harris are both named in the reserves, so whether they come into this contest or not could really be a defining factor. The Panthers have just really lacked that punch through the middle since that they've lost someone like James Fisher-Harris, and his return will be absolutely massive. As it currently stands, Matthew Eisenhuth is named to start. I see James Fisher-Harris coming into that starting side. I think Ivan Cleary is playing a bit of smokes and mirrors here. But when all things are said and done, I think this will be the game of the round. I think this will be fantastic, but I am going to go the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I will go them 1-12. Saturday, 3 p.m. at Brown Park, the West Tigers take on the Canola Sharks. I'm going to go with the Tigers in this one. I know the Sharks were good last week, and they were probably unlucky not to win. They had some really, really tough calls go against them, and just a few things didn't go their way in that contest, and that's footy. It happens sometimes. But this Tigers side have won a few and on the trot now, and they do seem like they're playing with a new air of confidence. And although they sit in 13th, you can tell by the last few weeks that this playing group genuinely hasn't given up on Michael Maguire. They had to fight hard for the Cowboys win. They did. The week before that, they had to fight hard for the Bulldogs win. They did. The week before that, they just went down to the Warriors, which was really, really disappointing. And I think that could have been the spark that they needed, although what really more do they need? But with all things being said and done, having watched the Tigers documentary that's out at the moment, I'm really enjoying that. I'm loving seeing this side of Michael Maguire, and I think he might just stir his side onto a victory here. He'll be emotional in the sheds beforehand, and I hope that he can get a reaction out of these Tigers players. Plenty of players out of position in this one, guys. The centers for both sides teams. We've got Michael Cheekham for the Tigers and Marwin Hiroti there for the Sharks. Cheekham more of a back rower, I would say, and Hiroti more of a winger. But with all things said and done, when this game is over, I think the Tigers will get their hands raised. I think they'll probably win 1-12. But with saying that, guys, the Tigers are outsiders, and I'm certainly not going to be shocked if the Sharks do beat them. 5:30pm, Cbus Super Stadium. The Canterbury Bulldogs take on the 7th place Newcastle Knights, who have squeezed their way into the top 8, and personally, I don't see that changing. I think they've just got a bit too much strike across the park here for the Bulldogs. One thing I really do love about this game is the fact that they have decided to put Connor Watson to lock. I feel like that's always been his best position this year, and although I do see his utility value coming off the bench, I think you can also make changes from your bench and shift Connor Watson accordingly in a starting role, per se. Luke Thompson comes back for the Doggies. That's huge. But they do get Kyle Flanagan back also. Jake Averillo moves to 5'8", although I had heard he had an injury. So we'll see how that one pans out. This one's a tough one to tip because the Bulldogs have been trying. They tried against the Warriors and they had some moments of brilliance. And then, the week before that, they tried against the Tigers. But the thing is, with this Newcastle Knights side, I think that moments aren't going to get the Bulldogs over the line. To beat a Knights side that has Mitchell Pearce, Kalen Ponga, Bradman Best finally all available at the same time, I think you're going to need an 80-minute performance, which I don't see out of the Bulldogs. And that's what makes me lean towards the Newcastle Knights. Then I go to the Knights' firepower out wide, such as Chihuahua, who I believe scored a hat-trick last week. Kalen Ponga, we know how electrifying he is. And I think those moments where the Bulldogs typically fade out of a contest or maybe aren't mentally as sharp is where the Knights will capitalise. They were poor in attack last week, but the Sharks were good in defence, with that being said. But the Knights were below their standards for attack is what I'm saying. I think they'll make up for it this one. I think they'll beat the Bulldogs by 13+ points. Cbus Super Stadium, 7:35pm, guys. The Parramatta Eels take on the North Queensland Cowboys. Eels are short price favourites here, which is crazy to me with their current form and how badly they've been performing. But if there was a team that the Parramatta Eels could rebound on, realistically, it is the North Queensland Cowboys, yeah. Cowboys sit third last in 14th, so they're not a real threat to the Eels per se, but given the Eels' form recently, you could probably argue that potentially they are. Hayes Dunster and Will Penissini, I can't pronounce that name, sorry. They both start there for the Eels. And a really good story here, the young fella, the centre there. Really, really good story when you think that, he's been... And this is the fact with a lot of players due to this whole sort of COVID lockdown, and they haven't been playing in the lower grades. And so to come in at round 22 like he did last round and play so well... you've got to give these players a massive rap. It's not like they're playing every week in New South Wales Cup, building up their skills, developing as players. They're literally just training. That's all they can do with this COVID sort of climate at the moment. So huge props there. Great, great story. Overall, I will go the Eels here. I think they do need to bounce back, obviously. And if they do need to bounce back against someone, then it needs to be a bottom 4 team, which the Cowboys are. So I'll go the Parramatta Eels, but I'm probably only going to go them 1-12 just because I really haven't liked their form recently. Sunday, 2pm at Clive Berghofer Stadium. The St. George Illawarra Dragons take on the Sydney Roosters, who sit in 4th place. I'm with the Roosters here. The Dragons have some more significant outs, noted by Andrew McCulloch, most notably, and then Blake Laurie also. Tarek Sims captains the side for the first time, and he moves to lock. Don't think that'll change how he plays too much, just because he is so aggressive and just a tough player that gets through his business. I'll go the Roosters in this one, guys. I think the Roosters have a little bit too much consistency and spark across the park. When you go through and compare rosters and form, the Roosters just edge out the Dragons here in almost every single area. So I'm going to go the Sydney Roosters to win that one, 13+. To close out the round, guys, Suncorp Stadium at 4:05pm, the Brisbane Broncos take on the New Zealand Warriors. Broncos have been improving. They only just lost last week, but I'm still going to tip the Warriors just because they have won 3 in a row now. And there is some belief in that club, whereas there's obviously a belief in the Broncos right now. and you can see how hungry they are. And this for me is a real 50-50 pick 'em. But if I had to go with one side, I will go the Warriors just because they have won 3 in a row. And I know that's not really a great sort of answer going off just strictly their past 3 games, but that's really all I've got because this is a real coin flip game. So I'll go the New Zealand Warriors there to win 1-12, guys. So I'll just quickly run over my tips one more time before I close the video, guys. I'm with the Storm, Sea Eagles, Bunnies, Tigers, Knights, Eels, Roosters, and Warriors. Thank you so much for tuning in for my round 13 NRL tips. I really appreciate round 23 NRL tips. Sorry, I really appreciate you guys being here, and I'll see you all next week for my next video. Cheers.